Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. And hello all. Basically, I'm really not an expert on code and databases, but I think that it's important that we consider the different regimes of time. And there's the near, intermediate, and far future. And what I run into in the as the author of the Transparent Society is to what degree we need to have transparency in the system. And there are several kinds of transparency. One is the ability of elites to look downward at us, and that's surveillance. And in a free society, the instinct is to come up with laws or regulations in which one elite polices another elite, say a European style privacy protection agency polices what government officials or corporations or medical facilities are allowed to know. And in the short term, in the near term, this is a worthy effort because you have a wild frontier of information about people that's out there, it's being gathered, it's being mined to an unprecedented degree, and if it's completely unregulated, then we are the sheep and we're getting fleeced. But there is a belief that over the long run, laws that restrict surveillance are not going to work as methods for preventing where surveillance would get in the long term, in the far future, or even the intermediate future. And that is Big Brother. You see in the novel and in all the movies about depicting George Orwell's 1984, where Big Brother and the state and the party have the telescreen in everybody's homes. And it's used as an oppressive method of giving orders and knowing what everybody's doing. But the horrifying thing about the telescreen is not so much its pervasiveness, because in the far future, how are you going to prevent that telescreen? Because it's sometimes called Brin's law, corollary to Moore's law. The cameras are getting faster, more numerous, smaller, cheaper, more mobile, every year at a rate faster than Moore's law. And now you can go down to Costco and buy a quadcopter that you can fly, and it has a built-in surveillance, it has a built-in CCD camera, and ability to transmit to your home station. And you just buy this right out of the box and fly it, and you no longer have to buy 5 of them and crash 4 before you're able to fly it. Because now it's go there, and all the balancing and dynamical control systems are now all built in. They're all turnkey. They're all, the smarts is right there. So you just tell it what to do, and it will avoid objects. It will right itself. So there's where the expertise barrier is falling, and the price barrier is falling. And downstream, what you get with this inevitability of the rapid advancement in number and declining size and cost and all of that of surveillance is what Verner spoke of as ubiquitous law enforcement. And that's where, no, universal. Ubiquitous law enforcement. And that is where you're caught all the time that you break a law. And notice how he expressed it. It's really terrific the way he expressed that. It need not be ostensibly a dictatorship for this to be a very, very bad mode. We were talking about this earlier, how my friend Ray Bradbury, the late Ray Bradbury, how many people misunderstand his book Fahrenheit 451. They think it's an Orwellian state, top-down dictatorship. But actually, if you read it carefully, he's very clear about it. It's a empowered democracy, and the people have chosen to be 150 million or 200 million, whatever the majority is in that culture, 150, 200 million little brothers. And it's a story about political correctness gone mad, where they have, by consensus, moved towards the agreeing that these books are just causing too much trouble. So that is a potential failure mode, and if it either the traditional tyrannical state or the little brother state, which is more shaped like a diamond, but highly judgmental, middle class, either of these could take this proliferation of ability to surveil and turn it into hell, which Verner portrays when he talks about ubiquitous law enforcement. Now,
this kind of sounds like meaningful use, and to bring that into health IT.
And this applies to health, because what you're talking about again is the notion that surveillance can become a rubric that encompasses the healthcare system. And what you have then is the pyramidal social structure of the elites at the top, the insurance companies, or in Europe, the single payers, whoever it happens to be, looking down at the masses below. And one of the things that we have to be concerned about with regarding transparency is the thing that serves the interests of the elites, whether it's government elites or corporate elites, insurance companies, is to foster a sense in the people that privacy is a major issue. That privacy is a major worry. Because then what you have is support for laws that restrict information flows. And when you restrict information flows, I have to ask my friends in the privacy advocacy community and in Europe and all these places, sure, you can do that in the near term, but in the intermediate term, who wins? In the intermediate term, do you honestly believe that you are going to prevent elites from seeing anything they want to see? And if you believe that, I'd like to have an example from human history whenever that had ever happened. And here's an assignment. You go down to the zoo. I assign this to you. This is the best zoo in the world here at San Diego. Go down to the zoo with a pointed stick, climb into the baboon enclosure, and try to poke out the eyes of the biggest baboon. I'll give you a clue. He will not let you. And you'll come out at best with some scratches. And probably more than that. However, he will reluctantly allow you to look at him. And that has worked. The only society in which the mighty were restricted in their ability to see is this one. And the reason why they have been restricted is fear of being caught by the people, by an openly, reciprocally accountable system. And the key to being able to enforce to whatever degree that the elites can be blinded is ironically an almost fully open system, because then you get what's called SuValence. The French, sur meaning from above, su meaning from below. I helped to coin that term. SuValence is where people are reciprocally looking from below and intrinsically is unfriendly to this kind of power structure and much more friendly to this one, which should be our flag, and that's the diamond-shaped social structure in which the well-off middle class outnumbers both the rich and the poor, is more powerful than them, and you have constant churn where your status is not automatically inherited based upon your parents. Well, the point is that when you have this situation, then your prospects in the intermediate and far future are very different. And whereas in the near term, laws that restrict what elites are able to know may have some near-term pragmatic uses to prevent abuses. In the long run, all such laws do, as Robert Heinlein said, in a novel is make the spy bugs smaller. A privacy law will tend to make the elites more discreet about how they're looking at you, but it's not going to make them not look at you. So as this relates to medical information, the point is, the thing that people seldom do is say, what are the trends? Where are we going to go? And where we're going to go is more and more databases that are more and more hackable, that contain more and more information, that the methods for parsing, for decoding, and decrypting, and getting into the information, these will leak. We see it again and again and again, that information about credit card numbers or bank records. Every year there's a scandal. Every year there's a leak. And what happens thereon is there are promises that it won't happen again.
Oh, and regulations to ensure that it won't happen.
Yes, that's right. And those regulations inherently, even when they are well-intended, those regulations lend toward the world that I spoke about, in which Heinlein's law applies, and that those regulations will primarily have the effect of making the spy bugs smaller and more discreet, and fostering an illusion that we have privacy, but they will not actually result in privacy. The way to get privacy is reciprocal accountability. That's how we have it now. That's why elites, to some degree, obey these laws, these transitional laws about not looking at us. That's why that's the locus of argument over the Patriot Act, for instance. And I was very, very angry with my friends at the ACLU. I send them money, but I'm very angry at them for choosing the wrong parts of the Patriot Act to get upset about. Because I point out on an infamous page in the Transparent Society, P206, page 206, I got all sorts of emails after 9/11 because it has a paragraph in it that says, this was written in 1997, let's suppose, for example, someday terrorists ever bring down both World Trade Center towers. What would the Attorney General ask for? I'm not exaggerating. Many of you out there don't know what that sound was. I just including present company. But in any event, the point is that I went on to describe the Patriot, what would later become the Patriot Act, a milder version, because I had not thought of John Ashcroft. But because 1997, you know, it's still Clinton. But the point is that that when people go through a period of panic, there will be a ratchet effect, because the powers that be will say, we could have protected you if we had been able to see better. And this is going to happen, and then you're going to ratchet, and the powers that be will see better, and then they'll ratchet again. Your safety is not going to come from blinding the elites and restricting their ability to wiretap or any of those other things. Your safety comes from saying, oh yeah, you need to wiretap better, you need to see better, okay, strip. I want to see you naked. Well, underwear. and if the White House becomes the glass house, then they will know everything about you, but what matters will be taken care of, which is what they can do to you. Which in the end is what matters when you're talking about the danger of the bad diamond, which is when you have the little brothers. Here the danger is, Big Brother, here the danger is a world filled with nosy and nasty little brothers using majority rule and consensus morality to oppress your ability to be different from others. If you have reciprocal accountability, you prevent this, you prevent a lot of the abuses of little brothers, because, you know, I can hold you accountable too. You get some privacy through what's called the restaurant effect. And that is, you go to a restaurant, you sit, you have a quiet conversation, nobody's eavesdropping on you. Why? Because you are likely to catch somebody leaning in towards you to eavesdrop more likely than they are to hear you. And that is more socially disapproved than most things you would say. Is it a perfect solution? Absolutely not. And someday a neighbor kid, a pimply-faced voyeur, is going to fly a little camera into the ceiling of your bedroom, and your safety will come from the technology being open, so that a neighbor, a hobbyist of yours, is going to say, there's a transmission coming from your bedroom. They follow it back to the little putz's house and tell his mom. That's reciprocal accountability, and that is what's going to work, and that's why the restaurant analogy works. But it leaves out one big possibility, and that is that you get millions of little brothers, 51% oppresses, because they can. Because the prudishness of this is what Ray Bradbury portrays in Fahrenheit 451, the prudishness results. Ubiquitous law enforcement adapts. Every time you go 60 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone, you're not going to pay a $200 fine because it would adapt over to a surcharge per mile per minute, per mile per hour per minute surcharge. That's what would naturally happen if people got pissed off from getting $100, $200 tickets. The $200 ticket was established because you didn't catch them all the time. Catch them all the time, a lot of things become surcharges. But the danger of the transparent society approach is not that everybody's going to know my psychiatric records or my medical records. If you use this approach, then the people at the top of the pyramid dare not pull a Gattaca on you because their genetic information is going to be available to you. No, the danger...
WikiLeaks.
Yeah, well, the danger is... Don't get me started on the WikiLeaks. The danger is that you could wind up with a universal, immature, oppressive diamond. And the only answer I have to that is us. That so far, the correlation has been in the last 50 years in the United States and most of the West, that the more people find out about other types of people, unless they are deliberate harm doers, the more they become tolerant of their diversity and their eccentricities. I do not predict anything about whether or not that continues. I don't know. It is too surprising. It is too much in violation of what we are taught to think about other people. But it's a fact that everything about this correlates with the long range, that SuValence, reciprocal accountability, generalized openness is the way to go. And everybody knowing most of what's going on most of the time about most of the people. I honestly don't know if my projections can go very far into the future and that this will work. All I know is that nothing else can work. Because if you look across 6,000 years of human history, these things did not work well.
Can I ask you a question?
I will take my leave of your senses after a couple of questions. How this applies to healthcare.
On a more concrete level, if we look at health information as an information space, think of it maybe even as the web, and each element in the space has its own wrapper that says who and what, under what conditions and what context can access this information. So you've mediated the access to this information at a fairly fine granular level, and you know who has been getting in there to see the information. Okay, can that serve as a foundational tool to provide transparency and privacy and control. And if an individual wants to share their medical record and be completely open with it, they can. If they want to lock it down, they can. But if you give people that ability to control their own information and access and to track it and understand it, is that change your balance of equation?
You raise a very important topic, and that is what you're asking for is something that provides the benefits of near-term, top-down regulation of who can see the information,
okay,
with some elements of the patient makes the decision of who can see. But with the tracking that leads to a reciprocally accountable world. The thing that worries me is that if you create such a system, then we are so used to the protections against others seeing what we don't want them to see, that we get into that world and we enter a world of illusion where your neighbors can't see, some specialist who's curious about you, the person on the nurse on the second floor, you're a celebrity on the 9th floor, and the nurse is not supposed to go in and find out, you know, Brad Pitt's skin disease. The point is that if we get used to that, then it will foster over the long term an illusion, and that is the illusion that the elites can't see whatever the heck they want to see. And so what I favor is creating such systems, but recognizing that there will be leaks, that there will be mistakes, and that over the long run, the purpose is accountability. Accountability for who sees, for accesses the records, making it clear to the patient who has accessed the record, having them have an interest in their own data without it being ownership, so that they can either charge for access to the data or hold people accountable if they access the data when they didn't have permission, but over the long run, having the expectation that this mix is going to change, and it's going to change in a direction that is going to expect more light.
I mean, isn't the logic of what you're saying actually that's an illusion? There will not be access. Effectively, everyone's medical record will be open. Isn't that the logic of what you're saying?
Well, that's the logic out here. I'm sorry to repeat the question. Isn't the logic of what I'm saying that it's an illusion to believe that it's restricted? Obviously, in the nearer term, it is quite possible to restrict who gets to see various things. It's just not possible to be sure. And so in order to allow a transition that is pragmatically useful, one of the things you're going to have to do is ease people's fear about privacy. They don't want their neighbors to know because it's uneven. What if your snoopy neighbor can know your psychiatric records, but you can't know hers? I mean,
that's asymmetrical. So the CEO of AT&T is sending me these bills, and I'm just having the most terrible customer service experience with AT&T. And I can't bill him back. I can't send the CEO bills like he's sending me. So there's no symmetry. Well, he's the elite.
There you go. The point is that if we had such a perfectly valid lie detector test, the powers that be would go, oh, great, we can govern better. Terrific, terrific. You're not going to apply that to me, are you?
Right.
And I was going to write a sci-fi story about that. Matter of fact, thanks for reminding me.
Okay.
Actually, my new novel starts with the FBI agent, happens she's pregnant. The FBI agent, there's a big meeting, and a U.S. senator storms to the front of the room at the big meeting, says, pardon me, Deputy Director, I'm taking over the meeting. And he announces, everybody, do any of you know anything that's a big scandal, not a little normal campaign finance, a little, this and that. Big scandal regarding me. Anybody? Anybody? Well, you will tomorrow, because I'm about to say the words that are going to get it out there. I'm being blackmailed. He says, I'm much more of a patriot than I care about my own damn career. By the way, the information is completely false. I deny it, but that doesn't matter. Everybody's going to believe it because it's really, really good fabricated stuff. Better than Hollywood. You're going to see it tomorrow. I just insured it right now. Now I'm telling you, all you FBI people out there, certainly some of you are honest. I sniff something. I'm not the only one. I think there must be hundreds of people in this town that this has happened to. Go get them. Now I'm toast. Well, after he leaves, the deputy director says, I've never seen anything so brilliant. Look at what he just did. Yes, as a matter of fact, there's a scandal. It was about to be unveiled tomorrow. We've got it all. We were about to nail him. Now he has muddied the water. 50% of the people in the country are going to think he's this big hero. Oh.
David Portray should have read your book.
You know how it is? Oh, I'm not going to tell you.
Thank you.